All right. It took him 5 attempts to get it over the line, but United Australia Party Senator Ralph Babet has secured a world first, a parliamentary inquiry into excess deaths. It is an issue governments worldwide have avoided because you know why, and I've said this to George just a short time ago. They clearly don't want fatal COVID vaccine side effects to be proven as a culprit or what could be the main culprit. But a majority of senators have won the day with the coalition, One Nation, and Lydia Thorpe supporting Senator Babet's motion, co-sponsored by Senator Pocock and Senator Jackie Lambie. The vote was 31-30. Now, Ralph Babet entered the parliament from Victoria in July of 2022. He was born in Mauritius and became an Australian in 1993. He went to Swinburne University of Technology and was a real estate agent prior to joining politics. He's on the line right now. Ralph Babet, welcome to TNT.
G'day, mate. Thank you for having me on. And also, happy Easter to all the Christians out there.
Well said. And to those who aren't Christians, happy Easter, because they'll be tucking into the eggs. I know that, for one, at the very least. Yeah. Congratulations. But that wasn't so easy for you, was it?
Mate, it was blood, sweat and tears. It was, as you just mentioned, 5 attempts. It was 2 years of work. I started working on this basically day one on that big house on the hill. I was already onto it because the people that voted for me overwhelmingly wanted me to tackle this issue as soon as I got in there. And that's exactly what I did. Grab the bulls by the horn. And you know what the problem is? The problem I found is that there is such a lack of political will to investigate the issue of excess deaths. For the life of me, I can't understand why these people don't care why their fellow Aussies are dying.
It's interesting because during the pandemic, we had premiers quaking in their boots when they thought that someone else had died or 4 people may have died. But when we've got thousands dying excessively, they don't want to know about it.
Well, mate, tens of thousands, mate. I mean, in 2022, after the vaccine rollout, was the highest death rate that we've ever seen since World War II. 20,000 of our fellow Aussies died, and we don't know why. And it's not all COVID deaths. And even the part of it that was COVID deaths, you have to remember what they classified as a COVID death. You could have gone into hospital, for example, with late stage cancer, stage 3, you're on your way out, and you happen to have COVID, they mark you down as a COVID death, not as a cancer death. So this is the kind of funny buggers that these people are playing with the numbers. And you know what? Look, if I really think about it, I know why they don't want to investigate it. Why would you want to investigate yourself for mistakes that you potentially made or potentially didn't make during the COVID times? So it kind of makes sense.
They don't want to have an inquiry where the recommendations or the findings are that COVID side effects from the vaccine played a larger part than what was first predicted, because that puts them in the firing line.
It does. And you know what? If we want to crunch the numbers a little bit more to look at how ridiculous the COVID era was, a median age of someone who died from COVID is 86 years old, right? But a normal standard run-of-the-mill death age where everyone passes away from natural causes is 83 years old. So you'd actually live longer if you had COVID than if you didn't. This is how ridiculous our country was a few years ago. I mean, everyone went crazy. It was absolutely mad. We've got to get to the bottom of it. We've got to have the investigation. But the investigation, I'm going to tell you now, it's already flawed, unfortunately.
Right. Tell me why it's flawed.
I'll tell you why. So
hang on, before you tell me why it's flawed, I had a question based on the vote, 31-30. Who turned the tables for you?
It was David Pocock. So right. Senator David Pocock turned the tables. He came good in the answer. He told me, he pulled me aside and he said, look, mate, I don't accept that there's anything to do with vaccines or anything like that. And I said, fair enough. But he did say he is concerned, and he has had doctors approach him and talk to him privately and say that there is something to look at here. There's something here. Right. But I'll tell you why it's flawed.
Yeah.
So on the committee that's going to investigate this, it's called the Community Affairs References Committee. On this committee, there are 6 full-time members. They have the say as to what the committee does. 3 of those are Libs, who every other time apart from the last time voted against me, basically, right? Or were very hesitant to support me. 2 of those are Labor and 1 is Greens. So the 2 Labor and the 2 Greens didn't even want to have this committee in the first place, didn't want to have a bar of it. And guess what? They are the majority. They have the lion's share of the voting power on this committee. It's flawed before it even begins. I'm going to say it now. They're going to claim that, oh, no, we're impartial, blah, blah, blah. No, you're not. You voted against having this committee in the first place. So it's going to be imperfect, but at least it's something. Small steps is better than no steps at all.
What kind of reaction have you had abroad to what you've been able to pull off here?
Oh, mate, this has gone global, and rightly so. This is the first time in the world that something like this has ever come up to be investigated by a Senate, by an upper house. You know what? It needs to happen. It needs to happen, because if we don't catch this here, look, we can be forgiven for what happened during the COVID times. It was a crazy time. No one knew what was going on, etc. Fair enough, fine. But now that we've moved on, we need to investigate so that we know what worked, we know what didn't work, we know what mistakes we made, so that we don't make them in the future again. At least that. I'm willing to turn the other cheek. I'm willing to forgive anyone who during the hysteria was caught up by it. Fair enough. I get it. My family members were caught up in it as well. But now that it's past, we must investigate. First time in the world, as far as I'm aware, that any government has investigated.
I presume we're going to find that there's a multiplicity of reasons as to why we've got excess deaths. We're going to find that during the lockdown period, no one went to the doctor, so that their diseases got worse. And by the time they were released from their lockdown or the pandemic was over, it was too late to save them. We're going to find out that, yes, if you think about what they discovered from that major study by those New Zealand researchers on 99 million cases around the world, we will find that the observed fact of who actually died because of the vaccines are higher than what the prediction was. We're going to find that out. And it just then gets to the point of what the commodity of these numbers come forward. How are you going to prove that? What kind of doctors do you need to try and prove your point?
Mate, I have people climbing over themselves to be involved in this inquiry.
Right.
People are coming out from everywhere. But what I want to focus on is I want to focus on the numbers. I want to focus on the data. So as an example, like you just mentioned, we know that dementia deaths are up by 18.5%. Diabetes, we know, is up by 20.1%. Other cardiac conditions, all grouped together, is up by 13.1%. So people are dying. It's not just, look, it's easy to say, it's the vaccines. Look, that's part of it. But like you said, there's also a lot of other things, people missing, not going to the doctor, not having their cancer picked up, not being able to be with their families, getting, dying from, especially older people, from loneliness, which is actually a real thing, being locked out in their homes. So it was almost 2 years of rolling restrictions. So, all these things are important, and we have to look into it, because like I said, who knows in the future if we're going to have an event like this again. And God forbid it doesn't happen. But if we do, we need to know what worked. We need to know what didn't work. And we need to, be transparent and shine a light into dark places. A lot of health officers and, state premiers that were on TV every single day have all of a sudden, as I'm sure everyone at home's noticed, vanished off into the sunset, never to be seen again. They're not on TV anymore, are they? Because they know that they stuffed up. They know they did. And you know what? If they were men and women of any sense and purpose and dignity, they would come up and say, you know what? Potentially we made a mistake. Let's have the inquiry. If we did make a mistake, let's make sure that we don't make that mistake again in the future. That's what they should do.
Exactly. None of us want to see people burnt at the stake here. It's not about that. It's trying to find out the reasons, the causes, so we don't do it again. By the way, just as I digress for you, but Lou, one of our viewers on the chat box on tntradio.live, has just written, God bless you, Ralph, and give you strength. And you've got a heart next to your name, etc. Thank you, Lou. So what are you hearing from the medical fraternity? You've obviously been bombarded. You've just told me that. But are they telling you, are some of them telling you that many more people have died from the vaccines than what has been recorded? Because if you look at the official number from the TGA, it's 14.
Yeah, look, anecdotally, it's definitely not 14. We have people come to us all the time and say that, they've been injured, they have heart conditions. I won't name who it is, but somebody that, works for me had an adverse event, had a heart condition as well. I've had family members personally that have had, adverse events. I have people come to me all the time saying, my daughter, my son, my friend, etc., is sick from this, but the TGA doesn't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear about it. They string these people along until they just give up on the whole process of getting compensation or things like this. And you know what? It comes from the very highest levels. The very highest levels of our government right now don't want this issue investigated. They just don't. I don't want to say corruption because I have absolutely no proof of that. I'm going to say that right now. But I am going to say that there are forces at work within our parliament at the moment that have a heavy influence on what our politicians do and say. Okay, I am going to say that. And you know what? That's not how democracy works. A democracy, and especially a Senate, needs to be investigating under all the rocks, under all the cracks, lifting things up, looking under the cupboard, looking under the bed, looking for things. That's our job. That's my job. So I'm here to represent my constituents. I'm here to do what's right. I couldn't give a stuff if I don't get re-elected next time. I'm just going to do what's right. I'm not going to play the game that these major parties play to try and save their seat for next time and do the right things for the men in the shadows. I won't do any of that. I'm just here to do what I need to do to represent my community, my people as best as I can.
I want to shift a little bit to vaccine mandates. And a current affair had a very emotional former NRL player and sacked New South Wales police officer Justin Paul on their show last night. It was a story done by Lizzie Pearl.
I saw it.
Justin was one of 55 police officers who refused to take the COVID jab. He was fired because of it. And while the force now employs new unvaccinated recruits, they refuse to take back any of those 55 officers. Here's Paul on Channel 9.
No one could answer my questions. They couldn't tell me what was in it. They couldn't tell me any long-term data they had on it. And I didn't want to take the risk. The government said they'll never mandate vaccines. It's a personal choice. Yet the federal government's put it back on the state governments. The state government's putting it back on the employer. Not only am I classified as a corrupt police officer, it's ruined any job prospects that I wanted to have. If I wanted to do anything in the federal police, you can't. You can't join the New South Wales police. You can't get a security licence. You'd be lucky to get a job at Coles. You're untouchable. No one's going to touch you. You wouldn't employ that person.
Fancy being slapped with a 181D, which is what he's been hit with, and so have the other 54, for not getting jabbed. Ralph?
Well, the 181D, as far as I'm aware, that's what you give to coppers that have, stolen drugs, that have potentially broken the law in a very serious way. I think the officer in Sydney that killed his partner allegedly was slapped with the same thing. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, at the end of the day, people like to scream "my body, my choice" all the time, bodily autonomy, etc. It works in some cases. Why not in this case? At the time, I understand it was a crazy time and they may have stood him down, but this is a different time. This is 3 years later. If you're going to be employing people now that are not vaccinated, why aren't you employing this guy? He's a cop. He's a good cop. He likes his job. He enjoys doing what he does. There's absolutely no reason why he should not be re-employed. You know what? The police commissioner, they just enjoy flexing power. They just enjoy potentially the power has gone to their head. I don't know, but I will be writing to the police commissioner requesting that they re-employ all these people that were sacked. It's just not fair. It's un-Australian even.
Well, my suggestion to you, and I say this humbly, but my suggestion to you would be to cite the Queensland Supreme Court ruling.
That's right.
Recently, that said that the minister could not order those police officers in Queensland to take the jab. He didn't have, or she didn't have, that jurisdiction. The same should apply in New South Wales.
Look, it makes perfect sense, and that's a precedent in a way, I guess, so I will definitely raise that. So that court action in Queensland was actually sponsored by none other than Clive Palmer. So you know what? Thank you, Clive Palmer, for sponsoring that action. I'm very glad we have guys like him on board, guys like him that love our country, that care about doing what's right, and that will put their money where their mouth is. So thanks, Clive, for sponsoring that. But you're definitely right. That is a precedent which we will have to include in that letter that I write to the police commissioner.
Now, can I ask you just about Clive? Has he been in contact with you since your victory on Thursday?
I haven't heard from Clive in a very long time, actually. See, most people will think that, Clive pulls the strings behind the scenes of the United Australia Party, but he really doesn't. He and I talk here and there, but we haven't chatted on the phone about that victory. But I will chat to him in the next week or so. We will strategize about how we can approach this inquiry and how we can get the maximum benefit for the Australian people from it.
Hear, hear. Well done. Congratulations on a world first. And thank you very much for your time on this Good Friday.
Thank you, mate. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you as well. Well done, Senator Ralph Babet. There you go. That is a major victory. 5 attempts over the line. There are governments around the world that have ignored this as well. And there are individuals who are fighting just like Ralph who haven't had the success that Ralph has had. And it's wonderful to see into those 31 senators who voted yes. Well done. It's a mystery where these excess deaths come from. If it's not about the COVID vaccine, fine. Let's find out what it's about and try and work out how we can prevent it. Now, just very quickly from the chat box, Lozzie has written on the chat box, when do the climate lockdowns start? Yes, fair question. What democracy, Lozzie writes? Mandates are unlawful. Mandates are also not laws. Let's take a break.